Everyone in the restaurant knew the rule. No one touches her son. But when the baby of the country's most dangerous woman began to scream and no one could calm him down, a rookie waiter broke the rule. The guards drew their guns. The silence was deafening. What happened next wasn't an execution. It was something that would change the history of the underworld forever. If you believe that love is stronger than power, leave your like now and subscribe to the channel for more exciting stories. The night was just beginning when the air inside the restaurant Veluto froze. It wasn't because of the air conditioning, it was because of her, Elena, known on the streets as the Godmother, the woman who controlled half the city with a snap of her fingers. She entered the main hall not as a customer but as a storm. Her footsteps echoed on the marble floor, followed by 4 armed shadows, her personal bodyguards. But on that night, the woman who made politicians tremble was on the verge of a breakdown. In her arms, dressed in designer clothes that cost more than the annual salary of most people there, was her son, Leo, and he wouldn't stop crying. It wasn't an ordinary cry. It was a sharp, desperate scream, the kind of sound that pierces walls and scratches the soul. Elena looked exhausted. Her eyes, usually cold and calculating, were red with fatigue. She rocked the baby, whispered empty threats, tried everything. "Please, Leo." "Enough," she murmured, her voice faltering, with none of the authority she used to command her empire. The customers lowered their heads, pretending to look at their plates. No one dared to stare. No one dared to breathe too loudly. The fear was palpable. If the baby didn't stop, what would she do? Who would pay the price for her frustration? Elena sat at the reserved table in the most secluded corner. The guards formed a human wall around her. She just wanted dinner. She just wanted 5 minutes of peace. But Leo arched his back, rejecting his mother's lap, screaming as if he were being tortured. For a woman accustomed to having everything under control, not being able to control her own son was the supreme humiliation. Julian, the new waiter hired just 2 weeks ago, watched from afar. He was cleaning glasses at the bar, but his eyes didn't leave the corner table. The other waiters whispered in the kitchen. "Don't even get close," the manager said. "Let her handle it. If you bother her, you disappear." But Julian saw something the others didn't see. He didn't see a mafia monster. He saw a desperate mother. And he saw a child who needed something that money and power couldn't buy. His instinct spoke louder than his fear. Before his reason could stop him, Julian dropped the dishcloth. He adjusted his vest and walked towards the forbidden zone. The sound of his footsteps was drowned out by Leo's crying, but the guards noticed him immediately. 4 pairs of hostile eyes fixed on him. Hands went under jackets, feeling for the cold steel of guns. Julian didn't stop. He reached the table. Elena raised her head. Her gaze was a blade of ice. "What do you want?" she snapped harsh. "I haven't ordered anything yet." Julian swallowed hard but kept his voice steady. "Excuse me, ma'am. May I?" He extended his hands towards the baby. The entire restaurant held its breath. The sound of silverware hitting plates ceased. A waiter touching Elena's son. That was suicide. Elena looked at Julian's extended hands, then at his face. She seemed ready to order him removed by force. But then, Leo let out a scream so loud she visibly flinched. "I know how to calm him down," Julian said, with a gentle confidence that seemed out of place in that hostile environment. "Please." The head of security took a step forward, blocking Julian. "Back off, kid." But Elena raised 2 fingers, a minimal signal. The guard stopped instantly, retreating into the shadows. Elena didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. She simply loosened her grip around her son. It was the only permission Julian would get. Julian took the baby. His movements were precise but incredibly delicate. He didn't hold him like a precious cargo that could break, but with the firmness of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. He placed his large hand on Leo's small back and began to murmur something. not words. It was a sound, a rhythm. He began to rock, not side to side, but in a gentle up-and-down motion, mimicking walking. The magic happened in seconds. The strident crying diminished to a sob. The baby's rigid body relaxed. Leo, who was fighting against his own mother seconds before, nestled his head on Julian's shoulder, grabbing the cheap fabric of the waiter's uniform. The silence that fell over the restaurant was heavy, almost unbearable. Elena was paralyzed. She looked at Julian, confused. How could that stranger, that nobody, manage to do in 10 seconds what she had been trying for hours? Julian continued whispering to the child, ignoring the guns, ignoring the fame of the woman in front of him. He was focused only on Leo. A few minutes later, the baby sighed deeply and closed his eyes. He slept. Julian approached the table again and, with all the care in the world, motioned to return the child. Elena looked at her sleeping son, then at Julian. For the first time in years, the iron mask fell. There was vulnerability there. "What did you do to him?" she asked. It wasn't a threat. It was pure disbelief. Julian sustained her gaze. "He just needed to feel safe," he replied softly. "He was feeling your tension. Babies are mirrors, ma'am. They reflect what we feel, not what we show." That sentence hit Elena like a shot. The guards were still tense, waiting for the signal to attack the man who dared to lecture the boss. But the signal never came. Elena took her son back. This time, her arms were less rigid. She held Leo with a new awareness of his fragility. "How long have you worked here?" she asked, trying to recover her usual coldness, but failing. 2 weeks, Julian replied. A nearby table let out a nervous sigh when they heard what came next. "I want to speak with you," Elena said, "after your shift." The customers paled. Whispers ran through the hall like fire in dry straw. "He's going to die," they thought. "She's going to get rid of him for seeing her weakness." Julian knew what that invitation seemed like, a warning, a sentence. But he looked at the sleeping baby and then at the mother. He didn't see malice. He saw loneliness. "I'll be outside," he said, and returned to the bar. Elena didn't take her eyes off him for the rest of the night. Her gaze was no longer that of the calculating mobster, but of a woman trying to decipher a riddle. The night advanced. When Julian's shift ended, the head of security approached him at the service exit. "The boss is waiting." The short sentence made the cooks tremble. Julian just nodded, took off his apron, and walked out. He found Elena leaning against her black armored car in the private parking lot, away from curious eyes. The driver was far away. It was just her and the baby, who was sleeping in the car seat with the door open. "Walk with me," she said. It wasn't a harsh order, but a tired request. They walked to a small garden behind the establishment. The silence between them weighed tons. "Today you did more than any of my men would dare to do," Elena murmured, looking at the night flowers. "You crossed the line." "I didn't mean to disrespect," Julian began, but she cut him off. "No," she said, turning to him. "You didn't disrespect. You saw." She took a deep breath, and the godmother posture unraveled. Her shoulders slumped. "I don't know how to be a mother," she confessed. The words came out torn, painful. "I command an army. I manage millions, but I can't make my own son stop crying. I try, but I feel that every day he drifts further away from me. He feels who I am." Julian looked at her. "No one is born knowing," he said softly, "and the fact that you care about this already shows that you are more of a mother than you imagine." Elena laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Money pays for nannies, pays for the best schools, but it doesn't pay for this. It doesn't pay for connection." She looked into his eyes, intense. "I need your help," she said suddenly. "Not for me, for him. I want someone who understands him, Someone who can teach me to give what I don't know how to give. Julian felt a chill in his stomach. I'm not a nanny, ma'am. I'm a waiter. Elena shook her head. I'm not hiring you to change diapers. I'm asking for a guide. I need to learn to turn off the boss and turn on the mother. They sat on a stone bench. My husband died before Leo was born, Elena confessed, looking at her own hands, hands that had already ordered terrible things. Since then, everything has been chaos. I had to harden to survive, to protect him. But the armor that protects me out there is hurting him in here. Julian felt the weight of those words. You are doing the best you can, he said, sincere. But you don't have to do it alone. The problem isn't love, Elena. The problem is fear. You hold him afraid of losing him, and he feels that as tension. Elena raised her gaze, vulnerable as no one had ever seen her. Why aren't you afraid of me? She asked, almost in a whisper. Julian sustained her gaze. Because today I didn't see the Godmother. I saw a mother fighting not to lose her son. The words hung in the night air. For the first time, Elena allowed someone to see her without the armor. If you accept to help me, she said, her voice steady again but soft, I promise to listen. I promise to try. Julian hesitated for a second. He knew his life would change irreversibly. Entering Elena's inner circle was dangerous. But he thought of the boy. That boy needed more than armed guards. He needed peace. Okay, Julian replied finally. I'll help. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, as if a giant weight had been lifted from her back. Thank you, truly. It wasn't a perfunctory thank you. It was the thank you of someone who rarely received anything without having to fight for it. At that moment, in the car, Leo stirred and opened his eyes. He looked at Elena, then at Julian. And for the first time, he didn't cry upon seeing his mother. He reached his little hand towards her. Elena looked at Julian, uncertain. Go, Julian encouraged. Without fear. Elena took her son's little hand. Leo grabbed her finger tightly. Elena smiled, and a single solitary tear ran down the face of the city's most feared woman. See? Julian said, smiling. He is starting to trust. I want to do this right, Elena whispered. Then you will, Julian guaranteed. As the night enveloped the garden, Elena understood that all the power she had defended her whole life was worth nothing compared to that simple and fragile moment, her son accepting her. And Julian, beside her, understood that he had witnessed the birth of something rare, a mother discovering that she didn't need weapons to protect what really mattered. Because sometimes, true courage isn't in imposing your strength on the world. It is in opening your heart where it hurts the most. And that was how the Godmother found the only thing she was missing: humanity. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to share. Comment below. From what country are you watching us? Until the next story.